All right. Hey, moving on with our microbes unit to actually a little bonus material here because we're not talking about microbes. We are talking about how your immune system reacts to microbes. All right. It is going to be, we're going to break this up into multiple parts because it's a complicated system, and we are going to get a fair amount of in depth with this one. I think it's important that we understand how our immune systems work, especially in light of, like I said, recent, current events in the world of um, a lot of people trying to pretend that they're, medical professionals and how, you're supposed to fight off viruses and all that stuff there. So going into the immune system, we've talked about a lot of, kind of scary different viruses and bacteria and how those things can be harmful. The good news is your immune system is undefeated. All right. You are here today because your immune system has won every battle that it has fought. It's sometimes it takes it a little while and you get sick and you don't feel well for an extended period. But in the end, your immune system does take care of business. All right. So we'll win all kinds of stuff here with the immune system. Um, First off, when we talk about um, immune system, it's a little bit different than like your cardiovascular system, your muscular system, those kind of things. It's not necessarily a defined body system per se, because and to an extent, it's everywhere. All right. You have your immune system has to be able to take on threats throughout large parts of your body. However, the closest one would be your lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system contains lymph, which is a clear fluid that circulates through lymph vessels. You've probably heard of lymph nodes before. When you've been to the doctor when you're sick, they'll feel kind of in your, not alongside your throat back in here. They're looking at these lymph nodes and to see if they're swollen or not. Because those tend to house, and we'll get through this, a lot of white blood cells. And so if those are swollen, that's a good indicator that, hey, your body's actually fighting an infection, and that's the cause for your disease there. Um, Random fact for you, and edema, that's edema, not edema, occurs if this fluid builds up in certain areas. You'll see some large swelling due to a variety of different issues there. So lymphatic system is plays a role. Some things that you might see in your lymphatic system is where your spleen is, your tonsils, your lymph nodes, thymus glands, red bone marrow, etc. there. So like I said, kind of, definitely an accessory system that connects to a lot of different things. Um, in your immune system, we're going to be talking about three lines of defenses. All right, today we're going to cover line, number one and number two. And then number three is the most complicated, so that's going to be a little bit later there. But your first line of defense. So let's say that you come into contact with a virus or with a bacteria. It wants to cause you harm, or it's programmed to cause you harm. It doesn't really want anything, but anyway, there's potential there for it to harm you. What happens? Your first barrier is that it is hard for that bacteria, that virus, that fungus to enter your body. Okay, so our first line of non-specific defense, so our first line of the innate response are just barriers to entry. Now here I have it, it's labeled as non-specific defense because these things exist. It doesn't matter what it is that's trying to get inside. It could be something good trying to get inside, but these barriers exist that make it challenging for things to get inside of your body. And it's also called the innate response, innate versus like acquired or learned. And that's because you're born with this. All right. We are all born with skin. You don't have to like get your skin can get tougher, but like it's there. You're born with skin. It makes it very challenging for things to get inside of your bloodstream. However, your skin has different pores in it. All right, there's different openings to your body. In your bronchioles. Okay, so think about your trachea down to your lungs, all those things. That's a large source of intake for us of foreign objects. All right, if you think about it, every time you're breathing in and breathing out, it could be just, dust or smoke or those kind of things. It could be airborne bacteria or viruses that might cause you harm. Your lungs are filled with little tubes that are lined with cells that have the cilia, so those little hairs on there. And the hair, combined with the mucus that covers it, is responsible for moving that mucus out of your lungs and into your throat to be swallowed. All right. So you've all had you've hacked a loogie before, you get some phlegm in the back of your throat. That is that mucus coming up out of your trachea, your bronchi, and it's cleaning out your any foreign objects that are trying to get into your lungs there. We have eyeballs that are vulnerable spots in our skin. Those contain lysozyme in our tears. So your tears have an enzyme in there that's actually very good at killing bacteria. Are a couple strands of bacteria that can get through. Those are the ones that cause pink eye. The rest are all just killed off by your tears. You have acid and sweat. Acid and sweat is what, I'm sorry, acid in your sweat and different body openings. So you have a slightly acidic nature to your skin. It just makes it challenging for a lot of things to live on there. You definitely have bacteria living on your skin, but it tends to be one bacteria that's adapted to live there. That's actually useful for us. And then wound repair. All right. Your skin is one of the fastest healing tissues in your body because we need to keep that barrier to defense active. All right. Having an open wound for several days or weeks is just asking for infection to come into your bloodstream. Okay. I think of that first line of defense like old medieval castle fortifications. All right. This is, hopefully you know what movie this is from. This is Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. All right. I like Lord of the Rings. But here's a look at the castle. You know, we have looks like we have a drawbridge in the back. We have this wall. It is a pretty impenetrable defense, right? It doesn't matter what's trying to get in. Could be a good thing trying to get in. It's not going to be able to get through. Okay, so your first line of defense is a lot like just castle walls, moats, drawbridges, all those old school fortifications that just make it challenging for foreign bodies to invade. Your second line of defense is going to be the inflammatory response. So something has gotten through that first line. Now what? All right. So that second line is your inflammatory response. I like this picture from the textbook. It shows someone getting stabbed. It's with a pin, not a knife or a sword or anything like that. But here it's showing a pin's coming in and bacteria is in there. All right. What happens next is we get a temperature response and we get white blood cells. So that area, not only does it swell up, you have a cut or whatever on your skin, you can feel it after a few hours and it's warm. Your body cranks up the temperature in that spot with chemical signals and it is going to attract two types of white blood cells, phagocytes and neutrophils. They are your first troops that whatever comes through those, that cut, they're swarming in there to attack it. Once again, it could be actually something that is, semi-helpful. Doesn't matter. They're going to go in. They're going to attack it, whatever comes through that opening. I like to compare that second line of non-specific defense to, one step ahead of myself. Those things live in those lymph nodes. All right. So those white blood cells are hanging on those lymph nodes. They get the signal to attack and they come out and they seal up the defenses. I like to think of that as like the old school, like Greek and Spartan phalanxes. All right. Now this is from a movie, but gives us the idea of the old school phalanx with the shields and the spears. Here, this is, the depiction of the Battle of Thermopylae, where there's a small gap in the cliff face where invaders could pass through, and the Spartan phalanx filled that gap up and attacked anything that came through. Once again, doesn't matter. These guys they don't know who the enemy is. They're just ready for whatever comes their way, just like those white blood cells. They don't know what's coming through there, but they're going to go through and they're going to attack it all the same. All right. Now we'll stop there with our first two lines of defense. Our third line of defense, just as a teaser, now we're going to get into very specific responses. Okay. So the biggest difference in this one will be your cells are highly, highly adapted and trained for very specific viruses and bacteria that they are going to attack. So there's our first bit of your immune system with the first and second line of defense, the two lines of innate responses.